This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Well, time to get back at it, gang. New month. Hopefully new team tonight at Canada Life Centre. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you, coming out of a very disappointing weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. 2 losses at home. Vegas Golden Knights on Thursday, and then the Ottawa Senators on Saturday. And there are some significant changes to the lineup tonight, which I think will make many fans happy, although they would agree it's probably overdue. And it's time to break this losing streak against the Los Angeles Kings. 8 o'clock start tonight, a little bit later than normal, so judge yourselves accordingly for that one. And we're going to be all over it. We'll dive into the weekend, the losses to Vegas and Ottawa. We're looking forward to bringing on Paul Edmonds, voice of the Winnipeg Jets on 680 CJOB. We'll also welcome in Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. And a little later on, we'll get the latest on the visitors tonight with Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period down in Southern California. Hope you had a great weekend. It was a really fun sports weekend. For those of you that are tuned into the madness south of the border, tons of great games, and maybe the highlight of the entire March Madness could very well be tonight on the women's side. I can't ever remember this much hype for a women's game. Obviously, Canada, USA, and women's hockey gets people fired up here. But this Caitlin Clark, Iowa against LSU will be setting some records ratings, I would imagine, south of the border. That's a 6:15 game tonight. And, of course, we had Major League Baseball back. The Blue Jays split on the weekend, 2-2 in Tampa. Couple of games that probably reminded people of last year in the middle of the series, scoring only 1 run, but got back at it yesterday. Brilliant pitching performance by Kevin Gausman, and the Jays are 2-2, and they are taking on the Houston Astros. But for most of you who are joining us on Winnipeg Sports Talk, you're probably wondering what is up with the Winnipeg Jets. And let's just say that those questions have not been answered over the course of the last couple games. A much better performance against the Vegas Golden Knights, but one that still left them with 0 points in the standings to show for it. Kind of a crazy end, a very controversial call, which cost Mark Scheifele his participation in the remainder of the game after what was originally a 5-minute major to Nick Hague. But Saturday was the game that I think everyone expected this team to really sort of wake up, exert themselves, and get back in the win column, and it did not happen. The Ottawa Senators, who were playing for next year, come in, win their 5th in a row on a late power play goal. And while the night was pretty fun in the building, the crowd was awesome, everyone ate a lot with it being Fan Appreciation Night and 50% off all food and non-alcoholic beverages, they felt appreciated by maybe the organization, by the people at concessions, not so much the team. As the first line continues to get caved in, we finally saw a switch in lines, but it did not change the final result. And now the Winnipeg Jets have a 6-game losing streak heading into tonight. Need to break it tonight, tomorrow against the Calgary Flames before that gauntlet through the Central Division, getting ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So we're going to have lots to talk about today. Welcome to everybody in chat today. Shout out to everybody listening on the podcast. Hope you had a great Easter weekend. And now it is time to get after it for a new month heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. By the way, happy April Fools to everybody. We'll see if anyone got so far this month yet. And a big happy April and welcome and thank you to all of our sponsors, including the great folks at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, the Winnipeg Jets, Consolidated Supply, Little Brown Jug, Modern Man Barbershop, Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and of course the fine folks at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. And we'll also get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Remo, happy April Fools. Have you been got so far today?
Yeah, I have been got, Hustler. It was, I sent it to you. I saw a tweet that Ken Holland had been signed for 5 years, and it really got me. So I had that. Just having some camera issues here. But yeah, that got me, and I've just seen so many tweets today that I don't know what to believe anymore. So if you are putting out legit breaking news today, don't. And I'm starting to get mad. Like I almost tweeted out from the Winnipeg Sports Talk account. We're changing to Saskatchewan Sports Talk now. See you guys. And then we have in the Discord people chatting nonstop. Spency made some fake tweet screenshots, Huss. He put this one out in the Discord and got a couple people. This looks for people on the podcast. This is you, a made-up tweet of you tweeting out this morning at 7:16 a.m. Jets suck. Winnipeg sucks. I'm out, boys and girls. Hello, Edmonton, and my new home at EST. And then he made a fake...
Outrageous Spency.
And then he made a fake response from me saying, don't let the door hit you on the way out. And then...
Okay, that's well done. That's well done.
This was actually well done. And then Connor chimes in with one. This is Connor's response. Fake. This is in Spency's made up April Fool's world. Mom, Dad, stop fighting, please, from Connor. So well done, Spency, actually. Yeah, that was some good humor. Some good humor on April Fools.
The first tip-off that was very much April Fool's is that I was tweeting at 7:16 a.m. That's usually not my prime time right now. So there you know it. Listen, let's just get into this because this is a big game tonight. We'll be talking about the latest play to the team and how they get this thing turned around. But just before we kind of dive into a little bit of Thursday and Saturday, we've got some news, folks. And I believe... unfortunately, there's some things you can be right about and you can be happy about it. There's other things that you can be right about, but it comes with a lot of baggage. And this is one of those things. I remember speaking on this program after I guess it was last Monday, coming out of the weekend with the infamous Islander no-show. And then the game against Washington. And we'd talked about, and again, Gabe Vilardi wasn't back at that point, but we'd talked about, what was going on with the top line. They weren't scoring, obviously struggling on the power play, and they were just getting caved in night after night on shots, on scoring attempts, and more often than goals. And I'd said that, and again, this is not April Fools, folks. I mean, again, this is legit, and this is what's happening tonight. We would probably not see Mark Scheifele with Nikolai Ehlers and Gabriel Vilardi at any point unless things completely bottomed out. Again, because, of course, Rick Bowness wasn't on the bench during those games on the road out east. Well, that's happened now, Reem. And we saw Bones and the team go to that line in the third period. They did have about 3 nice shifts together. And for all the people, and there are many, that have been clamoring to see this line again, which statistically has been the best line the Jets put forth at any point this season, and it happened while Kyle Connor was out, they are going to get their wish. Unfortunately, to make that wish happen, it took another couple tough losses and a 6-game losing streak and a team that is just simply trying to find their way and get better in so many aspects at a time of the year when most of their contemporaries around the playoffs, certainly in the West and the Central, are fine-tuning their game and getting ready to put their best forward when the puck drops on a best of 7.
So funny. I was following the game, and heading into the game, I'm thinking to myself, this line, they haven't scored, but haven't been playing well. They keep getting scored on, and you can't have your top line getting scored on. And just before the second period, Murat tweets out, "Want to end the Jets losing streak? The next 40 minutes need to belong to Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi in a way the last 5 games did not belong to Connor and Scheifele. It seems like a tough ask given the trio's 9-9 in goals this season, and this is Vilardi's first game back." And literally right after Murat tweeted that, they got scored on twice, one of those being the giveaway leading to the 4-on-1. And I had to retweet Murat again. He said, "The 20 minutes that followed this tweet did not belong to Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi." And I think that was it. That was where they said, okay, this line isn't working, and you can't have your top line getting outscored consistently. And I don't know what took so long, because that line was so good in December when the Jets were so good, and we all wanted them to finish the story and win that Central Division title. And at this point, we're just trying to finish the story. We're just trying to win a game here at this point. So some line changes today, and Rick Bowness saying, hey, we haven't won in 6 games. Got to switch something up. And it was almost like they were just banging their head against the wall, trying to get the lines to work. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if they stick with them for the full 60, because I think we've seen them, kind of switch things up and then just go back to it when it doesn't work right away. So I'm curious how that's going to play out tonight.
Go back to what? Go back to what? Think about what they're going back to. We've all watched this team for the last couple of weeks. No, they need to give this line a true run for a few games. And hopefully they come out and, show the coaches that this is an improvement and make some things happen. And listen, hopefully Kyle Connor starts feeling maybe a little bit better playing with Sean Monahan. By the way, Tyler Toffoli apparently is a game time decision tonight. He's under the weather per Coach Bowness. Cole Perfetti was in that spot tonight, or to this morning at practice, did not stay on for extra work. So I think there is the potential that we might actually see Perfetti and Connor with Monahan on line number 2. But line number 1 will be Gabriel Vilardi and Nikolai Ehlers on the wings, with Mark Scheifele in the middle. And God knows we've spent enough time talking about this. There's all sorts of theories why they've been so hesitant to go back to this and why they've been so hesitant to split up Scheifele and Connor. But, Remis, when you have results the way the Jets have had, some would argue for a long time, but especially, it has been in all caps of the last couple of weeks. That line not doing much offensively, having some major issues managing the puck, having giveaways and turnovers, and not the response defensively after that you would expect from players that have given the puck up. And one of the worst examples all year was that 4-on-1. That something's got to change. I was going through the game logs of this last 6 games. Mark Scheifele was plus 24. He's now plus 17, minus 7. Kyle Connor is now minus 10 in his last 6 games. And he is somehow on a team that is so far above even at 5-on-5. And you look at these, and again, I don't want to get too bogged down in plus minus, but Scheifele, even with the real rough late stint as of late, is plus 17. Morrissey plus 25. Ehlers plus 25. Vlad 13, Nino 12, Appleton 11, Lowry 14, Dylan DeMello's plus 39. Of any of the regulars, the only player that's a minus is Kyle Connor, and he's minus 9. It just hasn't been going well, and it seems to, listen, when you're playing guys 20-plus minutes a night and getting the results that they were getting, Rick Bowness, this was the last thing that he wanted to do, but the coaching staff's hand was forced. And hopefully that ends up being a real positive for the Winnipeg Jets, because God knows this has been something that a lot of people have been wanting and waiting for a long time. And as I said, it can't get much worse than what's happening in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it hasn't been great. Although I thought the game against Vegas was a solid game. They put out an effort. It had a playoff style atmosphere. It was tough. It was physical. Just the power play hurt them again so bad, Huss. I mean, 0 for 5 for the second straight game. Like, you're not going to win games when your power play isn't generating. They had a couple chances in that game early, weren't able to convert. I thought Thompson, he was solid, but it's just not going to get it done. And they finally managed to break this power play streak of not scoring on Saturday against Ottawa, and for the most part, it was their play was okay. I don't know if it was as strong as Vegas, but they put themselves into a position to win, and unfortunately they weren't able to. I mean, tough when you take a penalty at the end and give up the go-ahead goal on the power play. But I mean, the bottom line is the top line has been getting scored on. You look at the last 6 games at 5-on-5. Kyle Connor been on the ice for 1 goal for and 7 against. That's not going to get it done. And Mark Scheifele, 3 goals for on ice and 8 against. And you can't be throwing out these guys for the most minutes who aren't scoring and getting scored on. And Nikolai Ehlers, he was solid. He was the first star of the week on Jets Weekly. If you watch that on our channel this morning or listen to the podcast. So we'll see if they can recreate this magic from December. I know Velarde, he's been out, and I don't know, maybe we're expecting too much there in the first game, but we'll see how these guys go. And I don't know if they've been watching tape, Huss, about what they looked like in December, but it feels like a different team than what we saw when they had that streak of 3 or less and 2 or less. It doesn't seem like the same team, and I know it is a different team with a lot of different forwards, but it is crazy. These second half slides have kind of become a trademark here for the Jets in the last couple of years. And I was kind of in denial that this was happening, but how can you deny it here as we head into heading towards the final stretch of the season?
Hey, listen, it's been a really ugly 6 games. And I think that, listen, the team did play so well and set the bar so high, especially defensively earlier on, that there was going to be some erosion at some point. Every fan hopes that they can get back to that and play that style and level of attention to detail defensively to give them a chance to, go head-to-head against the Colorados and Dallases that they might potentially play in a first-round series, assuming that they finish 3rd in the Central. But a strong performance over the next couple games and on this road trip could completely erase this conversation for the last week and a half or so. But I think, I certainly know fans have already had these conversations, and I think they've been had internally that, if this doesn't turn around right now, they don't get back to doing what, they have done well and the foundation of their success, well, the team is going to be in the playoffs. It could be very, very short. And frankly, it wouldn't even be competitive playing the way that they've been playing lately, going up against some of those teams with where they're at right now. So as much as, the standings are important right now and these other matchups, it is all about the Jets and all about how they can get back to doing the things that they need to do. I will say, if this was going to happen at some point, get it out in the regular season with hopefully some time to get back to where, you hope to be. I think they still have that, but the time is ticking away. And the best dress rehearsal possible for this playoffs for the Jets is going to be next week or beginning on Saturday when the team heads on the road and runs the gauntlet through the Central Division with road games in Minnesota, in Nashville, in Dallas, and in Colorado before 2 games at home. But the time to start feeling better about themselves, getting some positive momentum going, is tonight in a big game for the Jets against the Los Angeles Kings. You know what? We should mention, Remo, and we'll get to a couple of these clips. One real positive on the weekend, and unfortunately, he did not get a win in it, but 500 games for Connor Hellebuck, very, very cool moment between the sold-out crowd and Hellebuck when he was getting honored. It seemed like Connor really, it meant a lot to him to get that sort of a response and a reception. And in a lot of ways, he is the franchise right now for this Winnipeg Jets team. And the only thing that was really unfortunate was that he didn't get the win in such a big game for him in his career.
Yeah, it's certainly unfortunate. I love how they had the jersey. He came out for warm-up with 500 on the back. That's pretty cool. And I agree. I think that milestone means a lot. And, we're seeing him set a lot of these milestones. And, it's sinking into me more than ever that, this guy could end up in the Hall of Fame when all said and done. One Vezina trophy, might have another after the season. You're hitting games played milestones. You're moving up the all-time wins leaders milestones. We don't have any players, Jets 2.0 Hall of Famers, Huss, but Connor Hellebuck, I think he's on his way if he keeps this level of play up for the next, throughout the rest of this contract. That's a big ask. We're just talking about the current day and hitting 500 milestones, but incredible achievement for him, Huss. A guy who was a late round pick. We followed his career since drafted. And he played some time in the AHL and overtook the job, and it's been his. And he'll be here, for what, another 7 years, 8 years?
Another 7 more years after this.
Yeah, another 7. So there you go. This is like when you think about Winnipeg Jets, Mount Rushmore. This guy is certainly on there.
I'm totally with you. If we had to make a bet over at Coolbet on will Connor Hellebuck be a Hall of Famer, I think that would be a minus number. I think it's likely that he will be. Again, there's still a lot, but to hit 500, which is such a significant number for a goaltender this early, to potentially be winning another Vezina trophy. He said, listen, the one thing that will really determine, your legend and your lore is, the Stanley Cup, Conn Smythe. Those sort of things that, every player wants to win in the playoffs. But individually, there's nobody that's given more and produced more for the Winnipeg Jets than Connor Hellebuck. So, as I said, great ceremony, during the game. It was just unfortunate that he wasn't able to get the win. We won't spend too much time on this, but Thursday night, the game against Vegas, I'm with you. I thought it was, a positive step, the way the team played. I think they didn't give Vegas a lot. Vegas is still really good at keeping you to the perimeter. And, the Jets put a lot of shots on. I don't know how many were real big-time grade A's. But then at the end, Nikolai Ehlers had an open net that he wasn't able to capitalize on, that he talked about afterwards and thought that they win that game otherwise. But I'll be honest, I was pissed off for 2 days about what happened at the end with the Hague hit on Nemesnikov. And I wasn't even mad about the changing it from a major to a minor. I can totally live with that. But that was the worst instigator call I can remember. And to think that a guy headhunts one of the Jet players and it ends up being an even up situation with no power play, and the Jets' number one center was out for the rest of the game, it's just kind of a sign of the times of what's happening for the Winnipeg Jets. Whatever can go wrong is, and that was a stunning development of events. And even though it was 1-1 at the time, Barbashev scored that crazy backhand. As bad as it had been going for Scheifele and his line, if you're chasing a game late in the third period against a team like Vegas, you need your number one center out there. And that was something that I think a lot of people had a tough time discussing. And outside of the market, not just Jet fans, I heard Elliot Friedman talk about it on Friday. It just didn't seem possible. Especially when Hague dropped his gloves first. It's almost never called an instigator, and it certainly shouldn't have been. And that was really unfortunate for the Winnipeg Jets.
I was livid on Thursday. I wasn't even mad about the loss. I thought they play well. Look, sometimes you lose. It's going to happen. But I want to see consistency from officiating. I want to see the players being protected. And that wasn't this. And for me, look, I was on team Brendan Dillon. I think I go back to the Brendan Dillon suspension. I thought I don't think he headhunted. I thought Achari came in with speed, Dylan stood there, and Achari ran in, and he hit his head. And look, I was like, hey, if they're just gonna call head hits majors, go right ahead. And you look at this play, Nemestikov, he tries to go around Haig. Haig sticks out his elbow and elbows him in the head, and he goes down. So look, they call it a 5, and maybe they put it down to a 2 because I guess he had his helmet strapped up, or he didn't stay down long enough. And you look at the play again, it's an elbow to the head, and it's funny because the Rick Bowness explanation after was they said Vladdy, he tucked his elbow and Vladdy went low. Well, on the Dylan suspension, where it was shoulder to the head, the explanation was the head was the main point of contact, and head contact is avoidable. So which one is it? Is it on? So which one is it? Are you just going to do any head contact? I think the rules among head contact has very unclear. And as far as the instigator, like, why didn't Darnell Nurse get an instigator for trying to fight Brendan Dillon after he had Corey Perry to the bench on Tuesday? Just the inconsistency, very frustrating. And again, the Jets shouldn't be a 4-on-4 situation. That wasn't a fight. Haig dropped the gloves first. I don't know. Again, that's not why the Jets lost. They were over 5 on the power play. But you just want to see consistency with officiating throughout the game. And I thought there was none of it there. And it was extremely frustrating in what had already been a bit of a frustrating game.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. There's been a lot of frustrations lately. And listen, the officials is part of it. But this is a whole, the Winnipeg Jets as a team are going to need to have to claw themselves out from. We'll wait and see if we've got bones from earlier today for you a little bit later on, but Jeff Hamilton's coming up. We are going to go to the rink and talk to Paul Edmonds in just a moment. Hey, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Consolidated Supply who are ready for spring. April is here, gang, and Consolidated Supply is there to help you, your business, or your property with so many projects moving forward. They are the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, golf carts. As the exclusive Club Guard dealer in Manitoba, both great new and used options for you, and other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. And of course, they are the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Pop by and see Consolidated Supply at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more online at cte.ca. Big event coming up at the warehouse, which we'll be involved in as well, coming up in May. We'll keep you posted on all of that. Our friends at Manitoba Battery are ready to go. Paul Edmonds coming up. I know pops by Manitoba Battery to get ready for fishing season. And guess what? The warm weather's here. It has arrived, and now it's deal after deal coming your way at both Manitoba Battery locations. Right now, I need you farmers, construction, and landscaping companies to listen up. It was the time of year you're getting your equipment ready to roll. Manitoba Battery has all the deals that'll help you get running. You got your half tons. You got those batteries available for $75 to $85. How about your big trucks that need Group 31 threaded post batteries? Those are on now for $80. And hey, we were just talking golf carts. 6-volt golf cart batteries now for $129.50. At the end of the day, there's only one place to get your batteries for a great price, and that's Manitoba Battery. Now, 2 locations to serve you. Find out more about their spring sale right now at manitobabattery.com. And hey, speaking of spring sales, big event at Modern Man Pembina this weekend. You'll have a chance to get a haircut and spin to win as they celebrate their 1-year anniversary. Of course, Modern Man has 8 locations in the city of Winnipeg. But this weekend, Friday to Sunday, the anniversary of the Pembina location. See them there. You can find out more at modernmanbarber.com. And a big shout out to our friends at Canadian Club. Hopefully we can have a CC after the game and toast a victory and the end of this winning streak. Of course, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey is Canadian Club, proud sponsors of your Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and available at the stadium downtown, down at the U of M as well for all Bomber games. And in the meantime, check out the entire Canadian Club family at your local Manitoba liquor marts. All right, let's welcome in the voice of the Winnipeg Jets, Paul Edmonds to get ready for tonight's tilt against the Kings. Paulie, hope you had a great Easter. Back to it tonight, new month, and hopefully new trend and new results for the Jets.
Well, before we get there, I just want to say to you, remember the last time that I was on and 3 different occasions we had phone calls coming in? I think I've alleviated that issue. I've got a little bit more technology savvy. Yes. So hopefully we have this little conversation uninterrupted today. And yes, maybe there's a CC, or as you like to say, a 2-finger CC, one of those right there, just 2 fingers. Hey, Huss, get the 2 fingers in there and you can have a big shot of CC tonight and maybe there'll be a victory. I've got a pretty good feeling about this one tonight. I don't usually judge the joy level at morning skate to be anything other than what it is, and that's for guys to get loose. But I just felt that there was a focus about this team today to try to end this 6-game losing skid and finally get more than just 1 point on this homestand because games are ticking away. It was interesting today, too, and maybe some of the pressure has kind of come off with this statement as well. But Rick Bowness today mentioned about 3rd spot in the division and just hanging on to what they have. So I think that, it's 9 points back at Dallas, 6 back at Colorado. I think it's a fait accompli that you're probably trying to just stay where you are and hold off Nashville. And maybe that's something that will be emancipating mentally for the Winnipeg Jets to kind of roll and say, hey, let's just find out where we are. We're in a good spot here. Be reminded of that. Let's just go and play a hockey game tonight and try to win one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, from my perspective right now, this weekend or this week with the LA and the Calgary home games, and maybe most importantly next week in that gauntlet through the Central Division, Paul. I mean, like I'll be honest, I don't even care right now whether it's Dallas or Colorado or they're in a wild card and it's Vancouver or Edmonton. You're not beating any of those teams with the way the team's been lately. And this is about the Winnipeg Jets, not about their opponents, not about possible playoff opponents. And it's about the team being able to raise their level of play. And we talked about CCs. I mean, there might have been a couple bracers for some member of the coaching staff after Saturday's game right now. But, Rick has said on a few occasions, he knows what the problem is, but he hasn't, doesn't want it to get out and be public. And I thought in a way, well, first of all, with what happened and splitting up Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, who had been really struggling for the better part of the last 6 games, putting that line together, but then in a very soft, not calling out players, but saying we need more out of our top players. It's pretty clear, like this isn't about the 4th line. This isn't about Adam Lowry's line doing their thing. Certainly there's been some guys on the blue line that have struggled, but like any top team in the league, Paul, I mean, you're really going to get carried as long as your top players are going. And listen, Mark Scheifele's had a great bounce back season, a long period of time where he really was an effective player at, in both ends of the 200-foot sheet. But this last 6 games has been a real struggle for that line in particular. And I think we kind of got a little more truth serum from Rick. And now that those players are split up, you've got a different look. I mean, a line that a lot of people have been clamoring for a long time that looked so good earlier this season, especially against the LA Kings. Maybe a new month, a new look, and, there's some new results, I guess, which is the most important thing for this hockey club right now.
Well, a couple of points from that. And not only have you been echoing what the coach has been saying and kind of presenting that to your listeners and your viewers, but at the same time, he was talking again today about too many turnovers at the blue line, too many guys trying to, dangle through 3 guys to get across the blue line instead of making a play or a pass. And it always reminds me of an old coach that I used to kind of have coffee with and just kind of picked his brain about the levels that he was at. And he would always say that there's nothing wrong with a 6-foot pass, right? Like it doesn't have to be rink wide or half the rink. There's a quality to a 6-foot pass. And sometimes Winnipeg feels a little stubborn in doing that, or when they get into the slot overpassing sometimes, but I digress. And Rick's kind of mentioned a few of the things that have bothered him, and the top players he kind of called out, not by name, but mentioning them after the game on Saturday against Ottawa, that the top players have to be better. So he makes this switch now today on more of a permanent level, and maybe you're trying to get back to what happened in December in Los Angeles, where you had Velarde, Scheifele, and Ehlers combined for a plus 15 and 11 points in that game. And here they are, of course, the Los Angeles Kings are rolling back in tonight. So maybe you're trying to find lightning in a bottle again with that group. But as Rick was saying also today, you have to change things up. He's even gone as far as to change up all the D pairings as well, because something's not working right now and you've lost 6 in a row. And it would be incumbent on the coach that if you're trying to get out of a 6-gamer where you're 0-5-1, you've got to do some things that you maybe make to help the team get out of it. And if you weren't doing that, you weren't doing your job. So we'll see what happens with this change and whether these guys can kind of get ignited again. The interesting part will be Tyler Toffoli tonight. He missed the morning skate because of illness. They had Cole Perfetti on that line with Monahan and with Kyle Connor. So if that stays true and Perfetti stays there because Toffoli can't go, well, let's see what Cole Perfetti can do. Otherwise, now you've got, a quick winger with Monahan and with Toffoli and Kyle Connor. Let's see what that second line can do as well, because ultimately you're right. The fourth line does its thing. The third line does its thing. You need to have scoring from your top 6, your top 2 lines, and Winnipeg has been devoid of that. I mean, there's a number of guys that haven't scored in a long time, but you need your top 2 lines to drive offensively, and that's part of the problem. Yeah, they've let in too many goals, but they haven't scored enough goals. When you're not scoring goals, you're not playing in the offensive zone, which then helps your defensive side because you're not playing on your side of center ice. So there's been a myriad of things that have really troubled Winnipeg over this 6-gamer. It's lasted a little bit longer than that, but I think some of the ills have really kind of risen here for everybody to see when it's come to the last half a dozen games, and we'll see if the Jets can pull out of it. It wouldn't take much for me, Hustler, for them to all of a sudden find their way into 2 points and then feel good about themselves again, and that could happen tonight. I mean, you've got old friend Pierre-Luc Dubois coming in. Maybe there's some motivation there, for yourself to try to hold on, as you mentioned, and we've talked about already, on what you already have. But at the same time, Calgary coming in to kind of end off this homestand, I think is important for the Jets to try to get some points here and salvage something on it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such a weird situation, Paul, in that, they played so well and won so many games all season long. I mean, this hasn't been a question of the playoffs. It had been a question of, hey, can they win the division? Can they beat Dallas and Colorado? And I mean, up until 2 weeks ago, these teams were in a dead heat. Since then, though, those teams have continued to be on a tear, and the Jets haven't put anything up in the win column. And all of a sudden, it's a difference that is pretty much, barring a rig slump on one of those other teams, that will not change. So you get to this point, and you're playing for different things. And it's one thing to say, hey, we need to be better. And the playoffs are in a month. Well, we're now into the final 10 games of the season. And I would imagine, and you can speak to it being around the club each and every day, it really felt like this was the case going into the Vegas game, that there was that, increased sense of urgency to play better, to start moving things forward in the right direction, 5-on-5, but also on special teams. And I thought we got a lot more of that on Thursday than we did on Saturday night. But how would you describe, I guess, Bones' message today and the task at hand for the Winnipeg Jets that is about them, not about anybody else in the division or the Western Conference?
Well, they've been kind of subscribing to that mantra for quite a while now, but it really hits home tonight. That second period against Ottawa was something that I haven't seen for a long time. The turnovers, the no-look passes that just resulted in Ottawa's transition game, and you're going to get really, slayed in the postseason if you're making those egregious mistakes. So they've got to clean that up. They keep talking about cleaning things up, and it's just a matter of straight lines. I honestly believe that sometimes it's players that are trying to do too much, and you've got to almost simplify the game from that standpoint to get back, as I mentioned, to make that 6-foot pass, right? So from that standpoint, I think the message has been loud and clear. In fact, Rick Bowness was a little bit later coming out to address the media today than he normally is. They had another meeting to talk about these things. So there's been a few meetings. There's been a lot of group discussions on what they need to do. And, they got Lauren Brossoit going in tonight. They played fairly well in front of him. He'll get his first start. And in 5. So let's see what happens there. But the message is loud and clear that they all need to be better. The top players need to be better, and the coaching staff's tried to do what they can to mix and match on some of this. But there's just some simple plays that they just need to make, and maybe it's just simplifying their game and having those top players not do too much. The other thing too, and you talked about it, Huss, if they could get a power play goal or two, not just one late, and then get a kill. I mean, both specialty teams have really hurt this team of late. They haven't been great all season, but the 5-on-5 play was carrying this team for a long time. And as a result, now that they've struggled 5-on-5 to prevent goals coming in and not getting as many goals as they were scoring, well, then it really magnifies the ills and the problems that you've had on the power play and on the penalty kill. Now, I will say, they get a power play goal after going through a stretch of 0 for 17 with Gabe Vilardi getting back into the lineup. There's nothing that's coincidental about that for me. Gabe Vilardi is a great option on the power play for the Jets. I look for more of that tonight if they can induce some power play opportunities from the Los Angeles Kings and get back onto the man advantage. Gabe Vilardi just gives them such an option on that goal line, whether that's backdoor to Kyle Connor, whether it's kind of that drop step move that he uses to get out in front and a wraparound or a jam job, or then be able to use another option back up top for Morrissey or Mark Scheifele. I just think that Gabe Vilardi gives you a few more vantage points to see and make a read from that standpoint. So let's see if the power play gets clicking with Gabe Vilardi being back in the lineup for a second straight time. And also, let's not forget, against his old team, the Los Angeles Kings. So, pull it all together, there needs to be some improvement all the way around. But it wouldn't take much to get that improvement going if one area of their game improved the fastest, and that could be the power play.
It's easy to focus in on the struggles of the top line over the last little bit. There've been some real struggles on the blue line, and you mentioned the PK, maybe come off their aggressiveness a little bit. Although, to be honest, I mean, there was so many cases in this last little run where I thought the PKs looked quite good for a minute 30, a minute 40. Fortunately, there's 2 minutes in these power plays, and they're giving up ones late. But I wanted to ask you about Neil Pionk in particular because, listen, Pionk struggled at times last year. A bounce back season for him was mandatory for this team to be where they've been. And I thought that he really had that for a good 50 games. He's really struggled over these last few games. I mean, the puck management has been an issue, some decision making. It just sort of seems like he's fallen back to some of those times. He's now paired up with Josh Morrissey, who is the leader of the blue line. What do you think went into that decision, Paul? And what are they trying to do for Neil Pionk to help him get back to where they need him to be, playing alongside Josh, which probably comes along with some tough matchups and big minutes?
Every time they've ever put those two guys together, it's always about generating more offense. And that might have an undercurrent to this latest switch with these two guys. I actually believe it's maybe to get Neil to play a little bit more defense and take some pressure off of him from that standpoint, being that second layer offensive defenseman on that second pairing. I think they're going to say, hey, Josh, you just go, let Neil kind of handle things back in behind. Neil has the skating ability to do that. Remember last year, it was revealed that he was bumped up and banged up a little bit. I wonder if the same has happened as well this year. Certainly, I mean, he's been under some pressure when it comes to the dump-ins and retrieves, and he's trying to move the puck as quickly as possible and be more of an offensive guy that I think he has deep down in him, but it just hasn't worked as well. I mean, the goals are kind of down this year. He hasn't scored for a while. So I wonder if this latest move isn't about more offense from that first pairing, if you want to call him that, but more of Josh Morrissey being able to play as he did a couple of games ago, 29 minutes, almost 30 minutes in that game, and then not worry about the defensive side of the game, and then just alleviating some pressure from Neil Pionk and just saying, go and play some defense, move the puck when you have to, but you got this guy on your left side that's going to really carry the mail and lead the charge up the ice. We don't need you to do that tonight. Just stay on the back end and make reads and make plays defensively. So we'll see what happens. I mean, that's the other thing, too. You've got Dylan Samberg that's broken up now with Nate Schmidt, and you've got Samberg playing with DeMello. I wonder how that's going to be, and maybe they're encouraging Samberg to be a little more offensive with DeMello. That's another sort of layer of these switches on the back end. And then you've got Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt. So, when you look at the breakdown of how they've got these defensive pairs set up, you've almost got one guy that's pretty good at being defensive and another guy that's a pretty good puck mover that can be offensive when they want to get up the ice and be on that weak side as part of their breakout. So I wonder if that's some of the sort of philosophy that went into these changes. I guess time will tell tonight against the Kings.
You know what? While we are talking about the blue line, it looks like Logan Stanley and Colin Miller are going to be out tonight. And as you mentioned, Dillon and Schmidt with a pairing, Samberg, DeMello, Morrissey, Pionk. I will say, though, over these last 6 games or so, Logan Stanley, I think, has really acquitted himself well. And, listen, it's great to, throw the gloves down and, kind of, announce that, we've got that, or the Jets have that in their arsenal, if you will. Not that there's a ton of fighting when it comes to playoffs, but I mean, listen, you've seen him in and out of the lineup, barely playing at all this year. How much did Logan Stanley do for his cause over the course of this last stint in the lineup in your mind, Paul?
A lot. And I think that you're absolutely right. It wasn't just the aspect of being that physical kind of force and fighting. He played like a bit of a bully, too. And I don't care what anybody says. You can take fighting right out of the game, and eventually we're going to get there. But there's still an element to physicality in the game, and there's always going to be that element. And when you can play like a bit of a bully and protect the area around your net, below the goal line and in front, it's going to make it harder for the others that want to score goals against your team to play in those areas. I thought that Logan did that. I thought he took away that space. He also, after he fought Keegan Kolazar in the Vegas game, remember there was one rush where he kind of came up late and then barged in front of their net and kind of gave Kolazar another shot. So there's that aspect to his game. I also thought that he's got a great shot. He reads the ice pretty well when it comes to holding the blue line, and he's not afraid. It reminds me, and I have some trepidation when I say this, it reminds me a little bit about the way he shoots the puck with the conviction that he has of Dustin Byfuglien, because Dustin never hesitated to shoot the puck from the point, and I've seen that from Logan Stanley. So by no stretch am I comparing the two, other than just what I saw in one element of Logan's game, and that's to shoot the puck from the blue line when he gets it and holds the line. The other part that I've really liked about Logan Stanley's game, and yes, it's acquitting himself very well, and they're really probably having another good look at him. And you wonder if he might get some playoff time. I mean, this is a guy that's 25 years old that seemingly has been around for a long time. I mean, he's been a household name with the Winnipeg Jets for a number of years, Hustler, and he's just over 130 games played in the National Hockey League. But I thought that we started to see his confidence come with his ability to move up the ice with the puck and rush the puck up the ice. And if he could do that, he would be, as they say, and as Blake Wheeler used to say, it would be tough to stop him going downhill, because that's 6'7", and that's a lot of humanity moving up the ice with the speed that he can generate.
Yeah, I mean, listen, with he's a unique player. There's not many like him, and sometimes it takes a while longer for guys to get it. I mean, for lack of a better term, to kind of really understand what is being asked of them and what gives them the best chance to help their team in a number of different ways. And sort of feels like that has happened as of late. And I would have never been on this program thinking that Stan, given the way the defense core was built and the fact that you brought in another right shot defenseman, that he might be in your top 6 come playoff time. But I think it was very clear that a lot of what he was bringing, the coaches have been liking. They've been moving some other guys around. And, with these new pairings, it will be interesting to see who steps up, who looks good, who really sort of solidifies their spot in it. Because right now there is some legitimate competition by guys that aren't in the lineup tonight to be in there as well. Paulie, listen, it sucked that they didn't get him a win. But Saturday, what a cool moment with the sold-out crowd celebrating Hellebuck's 500 games in the National Hockey League, all with the Winnipeg Jets. We talk a lot about, Scheifele and Connor, and the team will go as far as though they take them. I think it's pretty clear who is at the top of that list when it comes to influencing wins and losses for Winnipeg. And while he didn't get one on the weekend, Hellebuck has been the backbone, and special night for Helly. And hopefully that win that eluded him on Saturday is waiting for him the next time he's in. But, I mean, you've watched all these games. I mean, just thoughts on Hellebuck, his contribution to the Winnipeg Jets, and, his spot in the hierarchy of goaltending in today's NHL.
Well, clearly the organization would not be where it is without the masterful goaltending performance that he's put on seemingly every night for a number of years. And that even included the Ottawa game because he was pretty solid.
Oh, yeah.
The interesting part, though, was on Friday when there was practice and we had an opportunity and kind of from an exclusive standpoint to talk to him about game number 500 coming up. And it might have been the most loquacious that I've ever had the opportunity to talk to him in an interview situation. He was more than accommodating. He was very happy to discuss the milestone. And he talked about a few other things. He talked about the fact that he's been lucky enough to do it in one organization. He's got another 7-year contract that kicks in next year that he's going to be doing and playing all of his games with one organization. That's important to him. He talked about the 500 games, and that's sort of the silver stick moment for a goaltender in the National Hockey League. But he said he didn't want it yet because there's something else that he has. And he talked about the 300 wins. There's like the trifecta there, right? There's the 500 games, the 300 wins, and then the 40 shutouts. And he's only 30 wins shy and 4 shutouts shy of claiming those other 2 goals that he has. And then I asked him the question about, Marty Brodeur and 1,266 games played. And yeah, you're way off 766, but you've got a 7-year contract coming up. Do you think that there's a possibility of that? And he said, right now, it's chasing the Stanley Cup. He's got a Vezina. We'd like to win another one, but it's about that team goal. He said, it's more about, for me, the quality of start and not necessarily the quantity of starts still to come. So he was rather philosophical. He was rather profound. And it just tells you about the maturity that Connor Hellebuck has had as a Winnipeg Jet since he first came in. He also talked about the fact that he's much better prepared for the mental side of the game. He said when he first came in, he was pulled, I think, 7 times that first season. And he remembered that and how difficult it was to kind of bounce back from being yanked. And he said even the one that he had in against the Islanders on Long Island, he knew that it was a mercy pull, the only one that he's had this year, but he looks at it differently. I just really enjoyed talking to Connor Hellebuck on Friday and wish him all the best, certainly, because he has been the best goaltender the Winnipeg Jets have ever had and will have for a number of years and decades going forward, because he still has another 7 years. Let's see what he has in 7 years, because he's not a overtaxed goaltender. He's going to probably make about 60, 61 appearances this year, far less than the 67 and 66 he's made in the past over his career. But at the same time, he's kind of a go-down goaltender, but he doesn't flop around a lot. So he doesn't exert a lot of energy, big and boring, as he's called himself before. So I think that there's a lot of good quality starts left in Connor Hellebuck, and boy, has he been a value to what they've done here on the Winnipeg Jets ice surface for a long, long time.
Paulie, always great having you on the program. New month. Let's hope for some new results tonight. Get
Indeed.
Things going. And tell you what, that run through the Central next week is going to be, I couldn't think of a better way to prepare for the Stanley Cup playoffs than what the Jets have in front of them. I mean, a team in the LA Kings that's going to be there in the playoffs. They've been playing well. Got the game against Calgary, and then Minnesota, Nashville, Dallas, Colorado before the puck drops for real in the playoffs starting on the 20th. Keep up the great work on OB. Always love the calls and the passion you bring to it, Paul, and hopefully we can be talking about a very different atmosphere around the club in a few weeks as we get closer for postseason hockey.
That would be good. We're going to run the gauntlet. I'm ready for it. Thanks for having me, Huss.
Maybe I'll see you in Nashville, Paul.
At Tootsie's.
Save me a seat.
I'll buy the first round.
Good stuff. There's Paul Edmonds.
Hey,
you
brother.
can catch him on the entire CGOB 680 NHL Jets radio team with the broadcast night in and night out for Winnipeg Jets hockey. All right. Hey, new month. So let's raise a glass to the weekend, or in this case, a 1919 or generic. Of course, WST is sponsored by Generic Lager, your basic lager, just better. Little brown jug made the taste you crave with the name that says it all, with the impressively standard lager. Whether you're at a Jets game this week or watching from home, grab a cold one and cheers. And of course, you can always grab the great taste of Little Brown Jug at the Exchange District at 336 William Avenue, at your local LC or vendor, and now available at all of your local sporting events. Hey, spring is, I don't know, I guess it is officially here. The weather's getting nicer. And gang, now is the time to get ready for spring and summer with our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialist since 1946 in town. And now's about the time where you'll see the Wallace & Wallace crews all over doing fencing projects for the upcoming summer. They're already booking and expect to be starting installations by the end of the month. Right now, if you call Wallace & Wallace and book before April 15th, they can guarantee a May installation date so you can enjoy an entire summer on your side of a brand new fence. Don't wait and end up at the back of the line for a new fence. Give the best in the biz, Wallace & Wallace, a call today and get set up to get that fence in May and have a wonderful, wonderful summer on the right side of that new fence from Winnipeg's fencing specialist, Wallace & Wallace. Speaking of summer and spring, we got weddings coming up, the change of the season, maybe a new size or two for you. Guys, if you do need to up your menswear game, there's only one place to go, and that is F Apparel down at 190 Smith Street. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Don't forget, if you're in a wedding or having a wedding, talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount for great-looking suits for the big day that you can wear beyond the wedding day, and also some great deals for upcoming high school graduates. Pop down and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown. You can also find out more information and make an appointment at F. That's EPHapparel.com. And speaking of the nice weather coming up around the corner, it's just about fishing season. I know everyone finished up on the ice this weekend, and now we look ahead to a beautiful summer around the province, but especially at Aikens Lake, a fly-in fishing destination where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. And as great as the world-class fishing is, the only thing better is the incredible hospitality from the Aikens team. And speaking of the Aikens team, if there's a young fishing enthusiast or two out there looking for a summer job that they'll always remember, talk to our pals over at Aikens Lake about a couple of openings for guide positions this summer, as well as other members of the team. You can find out more online at aikenslake.com. And if you are looking for one of those guide positions, fire in a resume. And don't forget, still is an opening for Father's Day weekend. Other than that, they're booking well into July and August for the upcoming fishing season. aikenslake.com. And you can find Aikens Lake at all of their social channels as well. All right, Jeff Hamilton is going to join us in just a couple of minutes. But, you know, because we're going to talk about this stuff, we've got some Bones audio from earlier today. I'm going to play a couple of these clips and then chop it up with Hamilton. Here is Bones on the line changes, which does include Gabriel Velarde and Nikolai Ehlers on the wings with Kyle Connor up front.
Well, you have to change something up. That's 6 games in a row. And I tell you, the Ehlers, Monahan, Toffoli line has been our best line. And I hate to do that. That being said, we know that Nick and Mark and Gabe have had some success together before. But I've been stubborn. I need those 2 lines to get going. and we finally get Ehlers going, Ehlers and Monahan and Toffoli line going, but now the other line's not going. So switch it up and see if we can get, again, those two lines being a threat. Whether they score or not, I don't know, but being more of a consistent threat.
All right, so there's bones on the change that happened on Saturday. Will continue into tonight's game, and here's a little bit more from the head coach on what he wants to see from the new top line and the rest of the forwards when the puck drops tonight against the Kings.
Again, maybe it's the time of the year, maybe it's the opponents, maybe it's a little bit of everything, but they created offense, and I was been aware of that from that time on. Again, just trying to get to two lines going. We're hoping they're gonna, and with Gabe's injury and the injuries that we've had with the top couple of guys, it's been difficult to get that, but we're gonna work for it.
And what does Kyle have to do alongside his two new line mates to fit in there?
He just has to be himself. He just has to get skating, and he's an elite skater, he's an elite scorer, he's an elite puck handler, do all those things on a consistent basis. And a big part of that is also recognizing what your options are when you have the puck. There's times that all of our forwards are trying to make plays that there's absolutely no way you can make a play. There's nowhere to go. So we have to, and that's just not on one or two guys, it's on all our forwards. We have to start recognizing when we can and when we cannot make a play. And we were looking at stuff this morning, somebody's trying to stick handle through four guys. I played against Wayne Gretzky. He never went through against 1 through 4. Right, so we got to. Everyone, all of our forwards have to start recognizing that, and then we'll play faster. We look slow when we're getting up there and we're going east to west and we're trying to beat 2 or 3 guys. We turn the puck over, and now we're chasing the game. Now we're playing defense. So it's on everyone to get that thing, play fast, get going north, recognize what your options are.
Pretty clear message to the forwards from head coach Rick Bowness. And here's just one more. I guess some of the media were digging a little bit more into just, how they got here and why guys try to do too much as opposed to the simple way they played earlier with such great success.
Thinking they can make the play and, trying to do what they can, what they think at the time is the right play. And most times it's not, but that doesn't mean they're not trying to do the wrong thing. They're trying to do the right thing. You give them, and I know that, but it's a matter of recognizing when it's the right time and when it's not the right time. So their hearts are always in the right place. They're not being, they're not just going out there and just trying to dangle and turn it over and chase the puck. They just think they can make the play, and most times it's not. If it's not there, it's not there.
The tendency to do that, is that what's been causing the 5-on-5 play to not look like it did in the first 2/3 of the season?
In our structure without the puck, we take great pride in when we don't have the puck, all 4 lines looking the same, pressuring the same. That's been very inconsistent. Our structure has broken down without the puck way too many times. So when you're seeing guys, when we're giving up these 4-on-1s like we gave up, that's not our team. That's a breakdown in the read and the structure. It's so those are the things that's the things we're going to keep pounding at them and straighten it out.
All right, so there's bones from earlier today, a few lineup changes, and if you're just popping in later on, we're going to have Neil Pionk playing with Josh Morrissey, Sandberg and DeMello, Dillon and Schmidt for the pairings, but he was kind of focusing in on Scheifele with Velarde and Ehlers as the top line, Monahan with Connor, and potentially Cole Perfetti if Tyler Toffoli can't go. Let's welcome in Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammer, what's up? How was your long weekend?
My weekend was good, really good. Started out of town, not too far out of town, for business, for investigation I've been working on with the paper for a bit now. Got a pretty fun weekend, celebrated Easter with some family. I don't know if we talked about this on air before, but I got this gig to be a journalist expert in a true crime series that has.
You're a movie star now.
Yeah, movie star. Yeah, I've signed on for 2 seasons and shot for the last few months, and we had our final wrap-ups. On Sunday. So it's like
first wrap party. How is that?
Well, it wasn't quite a wrap party. That already kind of occurred around Christmas. This was like they go through the clips, and if For instance, there was one script where I was unfortunately mispronouncing the last name of one of the victims. So I had to redo those 16 lines because you can't, that's a pretty important part. So anyways, got that finished and done. So it was a little bit of a mini celebration as far as, I don't think I'm going to get another call back, but it's been a fun experience.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time because a lot of
finally
Jet fans.
For all those people out there, I'll be coming out on Amazon and a bunch of other places. So
well, believe me, we'll do a large launch of that on WST when you're on with us. Listen, there's a lot of angst around Jets lands right now. I mean, I left the game and I tweeted about this, and you could just feel like the people that, were there, and it was a really fun crowd. It was sold out. I mean, the organization did a lot of great stuff for Fan Appreciation Day. Everything was great except the result of the game and, kind of how the home team played. And it wasn't anger. It was, it was certainly a lot
belly of the beast husk.
It was a lot of angst. It was a lot of just sort of disappointment. And listen, there's a lot of PTSD.
The old dad line. You're not mad. You're just extremely disappointed with what you're seeing. It's like even worse, right? It's almost like you wish dad was more pissed off than disappointed. That's a tough feeling, man. I'm sorry. It doesn't sound like a great weekend for you.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because that's sort of what Rick Bowness has sounded like as well. I mean, we've seen Bones at times before when the team hasn't been playing well. I mean,
the only ones defending the Jets right now, Huss, are the fans. Not even the players or the coaching staff are giving these guys a free pass. It's like, heaven forbid you share a little bit of reality in here and, people go crazy about it. And I get it. It's been a good season, but it hasn't been a great end to the season. And that's the point. And it seems like the only ones not acknowledging that right now are those who prefer to be that dog in that room full of flames, trying to convince everyone it's okay. There's some good teams above the Jets, and while the Jets are a good team, they're not showing that at all right now.
No,
you didn't even ask me a question. I'm already going.
Well, no, exactly. And like I just said to Paulie, I mean, we can talk about Colorado and Dallas or Vancouver or Edmonton. I mean, all the possible teams that they could play in the playoffs. And to me, those conversations don't even start in earnest until the Winnipeg Jets get anywhere close to where they were before, which, to be honest, right now is pretty far off. And the weird thing is, I mean, if you picked at the 6-game losing streak, certainly some games are better than the others. And maybe the best of them all was Friday night against Vegas. But again, found a way to lose, and then came back with a performance and a second period against Ottawa that just is hard to wrap your head around. And that's why I think when we heard Rick Bowness, I mean, this is in the past, this team has been somewhat fragile. I'm not sure whether the team is. Maybe there's a couple players that they're sort of handling in a way that they think is best for them. But it was going to take a bottoming out for maybe to get what a lot of people had wanted for a long time, and that was Scheifele and Connor to be split up because they were getting killed night in and night out right now without the offense that has always sort of bailed them out. And we now get Ehlers, Velarde, and Scheifele together, a line that had 11 points against this very team when they got put together in December. Like, I don't know whether we want to get into why we think that the coaching staff has been so hesitant to actually get to this point, or just what we expect to see and how that might change. But this is not a new topic, and yet we're finally seeing it on the first day of April tonight in the midst of the lowest point of the season.
Well, whenever Rick Bowness comes out with his book of his decades-long career, this will be a very, very small footnote in what I imagine will be a very, very interesting chapter about his tenure here, because the fact of the matter is, something's at play here that goes beyond, Bowness's control, to be quite frank with you. And you can read between the lines any way you want. Someone's calling the shots to, up until this point, because it's gotten to essentially doomsday. Let's call it what it is. This is doomsday for the Winnipeg Jets. You can make the argument this is rock bottom for the Winnipeg Jets. So something larger at play is here where it's out of Rick Bowness's control, because I imagine Rick Bowness, if everything was up to him, that he would have gone back to this at some point. And I think if it was up to Rick Bowness, or you can even extend Scott Arniel, that when they made that change in the 5-game road trip, they would have gone back to that. They would have, not gone back to it again. So you have to wonder what's at play here. And I don't think we're ever going to find out what exactly the truth is until we get Rick Bowness's book in that small, minor footnote. But by the time that thing gets released, no one's going to even care or think about it. But the reality is it's a big issue right now. And for this team to have seen the success with Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde, and to ignore it for as long as they've had until eventually you got to a point where something had to give. And maybe, Huss, just maybe, that part of that is Tyler Toffoli's sickness right now, because we don't even know if he's going to be playing tonight. If that added some kind of needing to balance out or perhaps provided an excuse for why you would move Kyle Connor down to that line. Because, again, something is just really weird at play, and you're hearing it in Rick Bowness's comments over the last few weeks. He's kind of taken the kitty gloves off a little bit and has shown some of his, frustration, which I imagine has been building inside for some time. So, this is an interesting development. I imagine we're going to see some success with that line tonight. We seem to have seen success with that line every time they've been put together, including the bits and pieces over the last few games here. So I think there is, room for optimism here for fans and people and, people following this team in general to see maybe some spark here. Rick Bowness said it, that second line has been kind of their best line of late. But that's, I don't think, a testament to how well the second line's been playing. I think that's a shot against how much struggles they've had from their first line, that they haven't been bailed out from their third and fourth line like we saw earlier in the season.
Well, and to be honest, earlier on in the season, that line was great. I mean, we were all complimenting Mark Scheifele's 200-foot game, and justifiably so. And I mean, game after game, we're seeing that line do things that, are uncharacteristic of them. And what was mostly uncharacteristic is just how little success they've had offensively. You combine that with some really ugly results in their own end, or even worse, shifts where they're in their own end the entire time without the puck, and you get to this point. I mean, I am with you. This was something that was obviously should have been, I think, an option earlier. For whatever reason, it wasn't. And I had said after the Islander game, you know what, maybe there is a bright spot about this. They're going to go to this lineup. Now, keep in mind, Velarde wasn't in the lineup at that point, so that wasn't really an option. But the fact that it happened under Scott Arniel's watch and not Bowness's, it almost like it had to happen again at home, which it certainly did on Saturday. I mean, the 4-on-1, the key play that drove Bones absolutely nuts. I mean, listen, I was at the game, and I'm not sure what they showed on the broadcast, but they went to a TV timeout after that goal went in, and Bones was nuclear on the bench. I mean, he was as animated and as angry as we've seen in a very long time. And I think most people would agree that that situation certainly called for it. But they did put that line together. They certainly had some moments in the third period as the team tried to come back in. They gave up a penalty and then couldn't kill the penalty and ended up losing 3-2. But moving forward, I think there's some optimism of what we'll see from that line. But Bones, as we just heard from him, also said that the Ehlers line with Monahan and Toffoli was their best line at that point as far as offense. So Ehlers is gone from there. Kyle Connor has to be that guy. And I was going through some numbers. I mean, he's -10 in his last 6 games. He is the only player in the lineup tonight with a plus-minus. And again, I try not to dive into this too much because there is a lot of flaws in this stat. But when the rest of the team is +25, +17, and one guy is -9, it's obvious that it hasn't been going for him. And certainly the offense hasn't been there as well. What do you make of just where Kyle Connor is at right now and his individual struggles that have contributed to where the Jets are at?
When I think about treatment of players and how easy it is to kind of look at, a team as all equal 23 guys, right? Like that's what you ultimately want on your team. And I do believe that those teams that are consistent throughout the season, that are consistently making the playoffs, that are consistently going on, sizable runs in the playoffs, that are always viewed as contenders, if you will, they have that kind of that belief where everybody needs to be treated equally. I just don't know if that exists with the Winnipeg Jets. And what I mean by that is it just seems like you can't look at what, Nikolai Ehlers does versus what Kyle Connor does versus what Mark Scheifele does. Again, you want to do that. I mean, I think that's an ideal situation, but my point is I don't question a coach's, how he approaches a player. Like, would you want him to be, does Kyle Connor ultimately warrant a benching at some point during this season? Absolutely. Like, how can there have been several games, several examples where it's just, you want to talk about egregious giveaways. And I know Nikolai Ehlers has kind of become synonymous with that, in his drop passes and stuff like that in the past, which I'd argue has gotten better at. It seems like Kyle Connor has gotten worse at it. And the difference is, and, we've talked about this on this show. We've talked about it on the Kenny and Rennie show. Sean has gone, into depth when discussing Kyle Connor and his, his role and relationship with the team. I mean, he'll have these games where he has 4, 5, 6, egregious giveaways, whether it's on the power play or even strength, what have you. They're just egregious. Like, they're just bad plays, stuff that that if you were on the third line or fourth line in particular, if you're pulling those things, heck, talk about being benched. You might not even be in the lineup, and hence if it continues to go on, you won't be even in the league. So, but at the same time, you look at those games and then you look at the score sheet at the end of it, and Kyle Connor's got 1 or 2 goals. And when you're a team that's just starving for offensive production that the Winnipeg Jets have been for a while, as a coach, you're almost sitting there being like, can I rely on other people to, score those goals? Kyle Connor is a guy who, again, will not be playing all that well. And then all of a sudden he gets the puck on his stick and 2 seconds later it's in the back of the net. That's his gift. That's his talent. That's his contribution to the team. So you kind of allow yourself to forgive, I guess would be a word. And, again, I'm not advocating for it, but you forgive some of those mishaps during the game. It's just the problem. What happens here is that's just not good enough to win meaningful games. You need to have more than just Kyle Connor going. And so you can't really alienate him or bench him, because that's not going to help the mess that already exists and the inconsistency of offense that has already plagued this team, including a power play that has just been, quite frankly, embarrassing for the entire season and really has had only glimpses over the last few months. So, it is a tough position, but at the same time, I mean, I think you really need to look at Kyle Connor, where he fits in this team. He's an elite goal scorer, but he's not a guy that, he has proven to be reliable in the defensive zone and is going to expect, we've come to expect now at least 2 or 3 fairly egregious giveaways with the hope that it doesn't come back and bite the Jets in the ass.
Well, it will in the playoffs. And I mean, that is I think the point of what, we heard from Rick Bowness. And listen, he did it with kid gloves. It seems like there's some guys that can take criticism.
And that's the other part of it. Some guys can't. The reality is some guys can't do it. And whether you want to say you're picking on guys or yada, yada, we know there's some guys in the room that need to be treated differently than other players. That's not unique to the Winnipeg Jets. That's just reality.
Yeah, well, and I think we know who we're talking about. I mean, Rick Bowness spoke after the game on Saturday, and for the first time in a while, I think maybe opened up the window into his mind as to what he hadn't been saying when he said he knew what the problem was. Their top line's out there for a lot of time, hadn't been doing anything offensively and been doing things that were killing them in their own end, and then weren't particularly engaged enough, in my opinion at least, in making up for those mistakes when they didn't have the puck. And he said, Jeff, in a about as couched way as possible, that, he just, you need more from your top players. And it was very, very clear who we were speaking about, that top line. And I'll say this about Connor. I mean, at times he can change a game on his own. And to me, this is the first real direct challenge to him that, Kyle, we need more from you. It can't all be about guaranteed 20, 21 minutes a night, playing
You're running
with
out of
Mark on
runway
that top
here.
line.
There's only a handful of games left. You can't cross your fingers and pray at night that somehow there's going to be a change overnight. You're in desperate times, call for desperate measures. So if you're seeing something that isn't going to change, you need to do something about it.
Yeah, no one's doing it for them. And he'll make the decisions that he needed to make when it comes to the top line. But guess what? He's still there in the lineup. He'll still be playing important minutes. And we can get to the power play in a minute, what they might possibly be able to do to kind of resuscitate that from where it is right now. Although, again, they did score a big goal in the third period on Saturday night, which was very much needed, although in the end it didn't matter. But, I mean, Connor going into this position tonight, playing with Monahan, I mean, it's been very clearly a challenge to him. And, you know, how Connor in particular responds individually and how he plays in both ends, I think is going to be a real indication of what this team, because, listen, he's too important to the Winnipeg Jets to have as a liability, never mind a non-factor. They need him factoring games in a real positive way, and that just hasn't been happening enough lately, and I think a lot of things have been compounding it. And to be honest, I think the new look and the new lines, it's a no-brainer for the top line, but it's also a no-brainer with Kyle Connor, because they do need to change things up, shake it up a little bit, and get him into a different headspace and maybe a different responsibility, and that will be the case tonight when he lines up with 23.
Well, I extend that right down to the defensive pairings and the changes they've made. This seems to me like this team just needs a zap of emotion. It's like, you know, it's one of those things where you go through a rough stretch in your life and you're just begging to feel something, just anything to feel like you're alive. That to me speaks like to changing all, to doing that much change in your lineup and changing all your pairings. And it's just to show a little bit of life, to see a little bit of difference, to bring a little excitement to the game. And, it's interesting. I had over the weekend, I had a chance to talk to, there's some handful of people who work for other teams around the league, and they just like talking about hockey and gossiping, and some people included in and around the Jets that, they look at this team and they just look at a tired team. They just, it's just, they look tired. Like you look at Mark Scheifele, we know what Mark Scheifele looks like when he's dominant. We know what he's like at the top of a game. We saw it firsthand against the New York Rangers when we started to see glimpses of the playoff Scheifele and talking about how he was going to carry this team on his back. He just looks emotionless out there. That's what people tell me when they look at Mark Scheifele when he plays. He's obviously very skilled, but even cutting to the middle like he often does, he's just not doing it with the same gusto, which suggests to me that they're tired. And I think what's going to come back to bite this team in the ass was what to me the biggest difference from the first half of the season to the second half of the season was obviously the results, but it felt like there were more people involved in it earlier on, that they were mixing people in the lines, that they were giving breaks. Maybe I feel like with this team, with the style in which Rick Bowness and other coaches, Paul Maurice included, obviously, has asked this team to play a very difficult brand of hockey, a very tough, when you're executing it full time, you're impossible to beat, but maybe it's very difficult. It's proving very difficult for this team to be hard on the puck style of play for 82 games. And if you're going to ask this team the way that they're configured right now to do that, it's a mistake that was made with Paul Maurice. It's a mistake that's being made with Rick Bowness now, and it's lasted for years now, is that if you're going to ask them to do that, you need to sit guys out of games. You need to do a load management, because I think, and the reality is now the Jets, to your earlier point, Haas, when you were talking with Paulie earlier, you look at this game, you're not looking at the playoff standings anymore. The fact of the matter is, you're almost better off if you're in a wild card position, because right now you're going to play the Colorado Avalanche, and there's a very good chance you're not going to get out of the first round, even if you were rolling into the playoffs. So now it's about, getting guys ready for the playoffs. The emotional toll that will come for the playoffs, I just see this team crumbling under, and it's because I think they're tired. It's the people I speak to believe that they're tired, and that load management wasn't done earlier in the season. And while it would look bizarre to do it now, I almost feel like if you just continue to ram this whole thing, look at these last 7 games as some kind of crunch to get back in it, you're going to enter the playoffs in a position that's not ideal, maybe third, maybe second in the Central, highly unlikely, and you're going to be absolutely exhausted when the first round starts. So I know this is going to sound weird, but I almost feel like you need to take a little bit, the focus needs to be on the psyche of this team and not on wins and losses. And I fully understand that wins, bring in that positive stuff. But right now, I just think this is a tired team that's hitting the final stretch, barely making it off the runway.
Well, and I mean, That's not good, because I can tell you that the Dallas Stars aren't sitting their top line for any games. And Nathan McKinnon, I'm pretty sure, is out there shooting the puck like 10 times a game on every net and scoring. And
but each team's different. That's what I mean. It looks like the Winnipeg Jets needs to play that way. If you're going to ask them to play that style of hockey and be the horses every single night, I think you got to let a couple in the stable and balance out the thing, because right now we're seeing a team that you're whipping this horse, and this horse is like, I've already won you all these championships. I just need a rest. Like, put me out of my misery already. That's the feeling that the Jets are giving off right now, and the losses are compounding it. And the fact of the matter is that management should have been done earlier, not right now. And it's almost kind of too late.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you do that. Oh, we're playing well, so we're just going to not dress our top guys. Because, I mean, let's face it, we know who this is about. I mean, this is about the top line, in particular Scheifele and Connor, even more so than Scheifele. And on the blue line, and listen, I'll give you on the blue line, Neil Pionk is a guy that could have used a night or two off at some point over the last little while. He had a pretty good start to the season.
What's wrong with saying to a guy, hey, this is part of our plan. Sit down, enjoy the night. Let's give it to a guy who's also rolling and has felt part of this. Instead, it turned into, these are our top, these are our starting lineup, and we're rolling these guys, and we're going to move Logan Stanley in and out, whenever we see fit. It was just, it completely changed philosophies, it felt like. Sorry, Huss, I'll let you finish the thought.
Well, no, I was just going to say that. I mean, now with this move, I mean, I thought maybe Pionk would get a night or two off to just watch from the press box, deal with whatever. He's now actually going out there with Josh Morrissey. And I mean, they're actually going in the exact opposite way. Instead of diminishing the role or giving a guy a little bit of time, you're going out there with the number one defenseman that just played almost 30 minutes on Thursday night against the Vegas Golden Knights. And I think there is some element of sort of sink or swim on it. But Pionk in particular has really struggled over the course of this last couple of weeks. And, there's a lot of, I mean, the position, when you're playing in the top four in tough matchups, a lot of times with the top line that was really off their game as far as what they could do to help you, you can get some you can get some ugly moments. And there has been a number of those. And I'm fascinated to see how that pairing looks tonight. I mean, they can either look like geniuses for putting a guy that you would have been thinking maybe going lower in the lineup would help the team more than going up to the top pairing. And we'll also see the Morrissey effect. If Josh Morrissey can be a guy that can calm things down, take some of the pressure off Neil Pionk, and get him back to where they are. Because much like 81 and 55, the way this team is built right now, they're going to need Neil Pionk to play some big minutes and to play like he was earlier in the season and the beginning of his time with the Winnipeg Jets, as opposed to last year or over the course of the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say this, not necessarily in his defense, because I don't think it necessarily requires a defense per se, but he was one of the best players on the Jets in the playoffs last season. But I think for this situation, Haas, is to your exact point, you need Neil Pionk to be involved. You need him to be contributing. You need him to be playing like he played earlier in the season. And you can apply that to a lot of players on the Jets right now. But, I think this approach is the approach that, at least I've read and discussed that didn't occur in Philadelphia with John Tortorella and Sean Couturier, right? People were saying, NHL players were coming out and saying, you don't do what John Tortorella did and sit the guy. You give him more. You recognize he's in a funk. Maybe he's in a bit of a mental funk. His confidence is shot. So you tell him you're going to play him 25 minutes tonight and yada, yada. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case here, but it seems like it's the case here to get the confidence up in him, get him playing. Obviously Josh Morrissey is a great player to be your partner with. And if there's anything about, getting confidence and be playing, it certainly would come playing with him. So I can't help but think that's the obvious case here. And maybe take a little bit of pressure off him, right? Maybe I'm not sure there was a ton of pressure on him with Brendan Dillon, the way Brendan Dillon's been playing this year, because he's been playing certainly, pretty well, obviously. And so, I do think it's one of those situations where it's, let's not give this guy less and risk damaging his confidence. Let's actually give him more so we can aid him back into feeling better on the ice on a night-to-night basis as the playoffs is around the corner.
Hammer, great stuff as always. You enjoy this one tonight and the rest of the week, and look forward to catching up with you. Actually, I guess I'll be connecting with you from Nashville a week from today as the Jets hit this road trip.
What's the goodies for this trip? Just cause, or just because it's a big one? You got some
it's a big
mega billionaire bringing you out and giving you the taste of Tennessee, or what?
I wish that was the case. I wish that was the case. I'll get on some of those apps you show me about. Maybe I'll have someone that can.
Or just one of those companies that you force people to put their mortgages up and they win, right? They win, obviously. One of those companies.
This is it just came about. I had a friend going down there, pretty cheap flight from Fargo, and I figured, you know what, this would be a good time to go down there for a few days, see this game, see what Nashville's doing right now, and get away. So I will look forward to doing that. I'm sure I'll chat with you over the course of the week, though. But thanks for doing this as always.
I wish you wicked weather, man, because the reality is in Tennessee and Nashville in April, it could be absolutely gorgeous, or it could be really, really cold. So I wish you a sunny time during that trip. But I guess I'll see you before that. Anyways, thanks for having me on. Shout out to the viewers. You guys know you make the show.
I'll take -10 in Nashville if you could tell me that the Jets will win that game.
You know what, though?
We'll see.
Okay, I thought you were going to say then +10 in Winnipeg, and I agree with you 100%. But that's not where you went. And I'm sorry to dump on my own city that I love.
Hey, new month. They're 0-0 in April. And they've got the LA Kings tonight. And we're going to talk to Dennis Bernstein about that in just a second. Hammer, thanks for doing this as always.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Take care.
And you know what? Turning the calendar as well means that we are that much closer to getting out to Princess Auto Stadium. And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers cannot wait for football season. And I'll tell you what, I know the folks at Princess Auto cannot wait to welcome Bomber fans out to the newly renamed Princess Auto Stadium, not only for Blue Bomber games, but some, I'll tease this, some pretty exciting events coming up. One in particular that you'll find out relatively soon. Of course, Princess Auto, coast to coast, but proudly founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg, supporting all of our Winnipeg teams and Winnipeg Sports Talk. And it is the place where you find the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete those spring projects on your list or start something new at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. As disappointing as the last couple of weeks have been, the Winnipeg Jets are in the playoffs. And, of course, the organization working very hard to get a few more of you back on board with ticket packages for the upcoming season. Do not forget, you can go to winnipegjets.com/deposit, get all the information on the upcoming season. And if you do put a deposit down on packages for next year, count yourself in for priority playoff access. Hit it right now, winnipegjets.com/deposits, and get the whites ready. Speaking of the whites, you might want to make a trip down to Royal Sports in advance of the playoffs. All of the Jets gear is ready to go, including tons of white for the whiteout at Canada Life Center. And while you're at it, new Major League Baseball gear, Blue Jays starting on the weekend, tons of new Blue Jays gear, NFL, Bombers, you name it. But most of all, soccer, baseball, all the great spring sports that are going to get everybody outside ready for you at Royal Sports, the OG Superstore in Winnipeg. For over 40 years, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And again, 8 o'clock game tonight. If you're not lucky enough to have a ticket to Canada Life Center for the Jets and Kings, your next best place to watch it is always your local Boston Pizza. On the big screen, grab a pick-a-player for the pick-a-player goal contests. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. The best place to get together with your gang for Jets and more is always your local Boston Pizza. All right, we're going to hear from Kyle Connor before the end of the program. He spoke today as well. But let's get the latest on the visitors and welcome in DB himself, Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period. Dennis, what's up? How are you?
It's always great talking to you, Hustler. The sky's falling in Winnipeg, eh? Now, I heard in January here, right, with respect to the Kings winning 3-17. So it's look, Hustler, the sky's not falling, as you mentioned. Jets are going to make the playoffs, but you want to be playing well going into the playoffs. So these last 8 games are kind of crucial. And I've always said you're going to play a good team no matter what. second, third, wild card, first, second. Who cares? Going to play a good team. So it's an interesting game tonight. And Hiller's coached this team, Jim Hill, for 25 games. The most angry he was at the end of game 25. Like the effort, in quotes, the team put in Calgary was really shocking and totally out of character. I don't know what went on in Calgary Saturday night, but certainly I think you're going to get a much more motivated team at Canada Life tonight.
Well, I'm sort of with you. And I mean, I think, you could put the Kings into this situation as well. Like, whoever LA plays, whoever Winnipeg plays in the playoffs is going to be a hell of an opponent. And even if you're at your best, there's nothing guaranteed.
Right.
But if you don't get to where closer to your A game, these series can be short because we know who's waiting for them right now. Like, where are the Kings at? You mentioned it was a dud in Calgary. They have seemed to have had better results over the last month and a half.
Yeah, they're still a little inconsistent, though, Hustler, because they won 4 straight going into Edmonton, and for some reason, Alberta, unkind. They're 0-4 against the Alberta teams this year. So it wasn't a great performance. They were down 3-0 against Edmonton, but the performance, like I said, I think they had 4 shots on goal in Calgary. And Calgary's done, right? They're over. They're done. So they've been better. I think the one consistency, the strongest part of the game has been the penalty kill, but it hasn't been good over the last couple of weeks, so that's kind of fallen by the wayside. The goaltending's still solid. So you're going to get Cam Talbot tonight. David Rittich has been great as well. So that's the strength of this team. And you're probably going to see an NHL debut, Akil Thomas, who has really struggled. I think really highly of this kid who's a center, has had so many shoulder injuries, has rehabbed 2 or 3 times. He's supposed to make his debut tonight. One of the reasons is that Jim Hiller said Phil Deneau was 50-50. I'm sure Jet fans would like not to see Phil in the lineup because of his defensive prowess. So they've been good enough. But again, when you look at their schedule after tonight, and this is going to be a tough road trip regardless, you're going to get a motivated Jets team with Velarde back in the lineup and all the other former Kings in the lineup. But you look after tonight, they have, I think, the easiest strength of schedule in the NHL down the stretch. They don't leave California. They have 2 road games. One in Anaheim, which is like a road game, which is like a home game for the Kings. And then they go up to San Jose as a team that they should beat. But if you add the St. Louis Blues, I guess maybe San Jose isn't a team that you should beat. So, they should finish. Last year, they finished with 103 points. Maybe this year, the easy schedule down the stretch, probably 100. And with all that's gone on, Hustle, with this team, with Todd getting turfed, with the 3 wins in 17 games in a stretch over 6 weeks, they're still a 100-point team. Can they be dangerous? Yeah, but they have to have all their games clicking. They have to have the power play clicking. The penalty kill has to be better. They have to get key saves at key times. But that's not unlike, 6 or 7 teams in the West right now.
What are the Kings playing for right now, Dennis? And is there, when you look at their predicament in that Pacific Division, is there, in your mind, is there one situation where they finish 3rd or 4th that's better than the others? I mean, as we've said before, there's a lot of good teams. No matter what, you're going up against a legit opponent.
Yeah, I will say this. They want to stay in the top 3 in the Pacific, and here's why. If you fall to a wild card, yeah, you could play Vancouver or Edmonton, who wants it, but you could play the winner of the Central. And if it's going to be Dallas or Colorado, here's the record against Dallas and Colorado. They played 5 games, they won 1. The 1 game they won, Colorado was on a back-to-back, played an overtime game in Colorado in Edmonton the night before, and they played without Cale Makar. They can't beat Colorado, and they can't beat Dallas. I give them a punch of chance against anybody else in the Pacific. They've played well against Edmonton, even though they've lost a lot of regular season games. All the games have been close. They lost, I think, 2 out of 3 to Vegas, but 1 was in a shootout. Right? They've beaten Vancouver twice. They're 2-1 against Vancouver, the only game they lost. They want to stay in the center. So what they're playing for, Hustler, is to stay in the division. If they can get to a conference final, the path's got to be get to the 3 seed, win that round, and win the division, beat the division winner. If they got to go cross division, even if they have to play Winnipeg, but I don't think your Jets are going to win the division. Dallas or Colorado, that's a short series right now, the way these 2 teams are playing, the way they've played against those 2 teams.
Do they go head-to-head against Vegas at all before the end of the season? I mean, they're 3 back of the Knights with a game in hand, and that's essentially the team that they are chasing. It's not going to be Edmonton falling to the wild card.
Here's the crazy thing about the schedule this year, Hustler. They were finished with Vegas in November. 3-game series finished in November, and they hadn't played Vancouver until February, which is these divisional teams. This is not like, oh, they're not playing. Yeah, you're not playing Pittsburgh or Carolina. So they're done. So there's no head-to-head left. There's one more head-to-head with Vancouver, and that's the other thing. They only play two. There's 9 games left. They only play 2 playoff teams. The Jets tonight and then Vancouver Saturday. Everybody else is out of the playoffs right now. So again, it's a very advantageous schedule, but you still have to win the games.
They got to take it. They have to take advantage of that advantageous schedule if they do want to be ahead of the Vegas Golden Knights. Listen, obviously we paid attention throughout the season to the trials and tribulations of one PLD. Where is he at right now? It seemed a little quieter lately. The team's been winning more. Is he coming around?
He's coming around with respect to he hasn't had awful games, and he's playing with Victor Arvidsson, which that's day to day and shift to shift. The way Jim Hiller flips everybody on the line changes, and so one difference between Tom McClellan and Jim Hiller is that Jim's not afraid to switch pairs, line change. I know that Bones is probably going to do that tonight, but Jim's been doing it since he really got here, and it's refreshed the team. PLD, like here's the thing, okay? I mentioned a game in Calgary, which was just a disaster. That was the game when you don't have Kopitar and Dano clicking and the offense not clicking. That's the game you needed him to step up and do something. He didn't do anything. So that's the thing. So again, if you're trying to put a positive spin on this, and I'm not, it is what it is. You see the numbers. You see the effort some nights. They're trying to get this to a point where he's going to be effective in the playoffs. And they're holding on hope. They're saying, look, we traded for this guy for game 83, not the first 82. And that's the way you spin it right now. But if that's the case, he's got to come through in the playoffs. He's got to be that game 1 guy against Vegas. And that's what they're hanging on. There's a video of that game 1. They should probably run it in the room for him, probably 2 or 3 times the first playoff game. But it hasn't been great. It still hasn't been great. And you're hoping, if you're an LA Kings fan or organization, you're hoping this guy does a lot better in the playoffs because it hasn't been a good first, 73 games.
Hey, while we're talking about Dubois, there were a few reports coming out post-deadline that there was a deal potentially on the table for Ullmark. We've heard that it was suggested it was Dubois that would have been going the other way. I mean, did you get into that? How much legitimacy is that to that? And what does that just say about, this again is the first year, and I believe there's a full no move that kicks in on July 1st, Dennis. What did you learn about that, and what does that say for this team and his future with LA moving forward?
Okay, so 2 things. They are still interested in Ullmark. If they can convince him, and I think part of it's geographic, right? That it's a longer flight back to Sweden from LA, and okay, if that's the case, do you really want him on team? I think they're still interested in Ullmark. And the goaltending situation will not be the same as it is this year. Right? Maybe they extend Cam Talbot. He probably wants about $2.5 million a year for maybe 2 years. I think he's earned it, but as a backup. And then they go get a SARS. They go get an Ullmark, maybe a Markstrom. With respect to PLD in the trade, well, let's put it this way. It's not 0% that his name was discussed. Do I think it was close? No. And I've talked to some people. They deny it. But yeah, he has a no movement clause that clicks in at the end of the season, right? But if you also look at his buyout, Hustler, it's not that bad. It's really, I think the highest, now look, it's a long buyout with respect to cap hits. I think the highest cap hit in any particular season is a little over $3 million for 4 or 5 years. So when you look at it and you look at the performance and you look at, maybe a replacement player to take that cap hit, you could do it. So do I think it's going to come to that? No. I think what you worry about if you're Rob Blake in the organization is, you don't want to have an Huberdeau situation. Like, I can write off this first year for Dubois and say, okay, he got adjusted. He's really not a 3C. Maybe needed more time, so maybe in year 2. And look at Huberdeau in year 2. It hasn't been good again, and that's the concern. So, yeah, there's some modicum of truth. Maybe, look, here's the thing, Hutzer, you know this. 99% of the players are talked about, 1% are traded. I think there was a conversation that had something to do with Dubois in there. Yeah. Do I think it was very close? I don't. Would I be surprised if he got traded? Yeah, because if you're a scout, Hustler, and you're scouting that player, and your job depends on, let's bring in this guy for another 7 years, would you make that recommendation based on his play this season? I wouldn't.
It'd probably be pretty tough. Has he ever really fit in with his team and the teammates and all that? Or has that gotten any better? Or is he, at times he seemed like he was sort of a guy on an island?
Yeah, well, Drew Doughty had that, and Drew's had some famous quotes this year about cookie night. Right? Yeah. And Drew said it intentionally, and I think it was pointed at Dubois, probably Kevin Fiala, because they're the 2 kind of off-script guys that are on this team. If they don't play the process, fine. I think he fits in fine. When you look at the conversation he has with his teammates in the locker rooms on practice days, it's free and flowing. And I told you this before, Hustler, I give the guy credit for one thing. He hasn't hid from the media one day. He's in the locker room every day answering questions. And I'll give him credit for that. So I think that, look, is he the most beloved player in the room? No, because he's not Drew Doughty. He's not Trevor Lewis, who's who's going to close in on 1,000 games as a guy who's really a depth forward. So he's not those guys. He's not a leader in the room yet. But I don't think he's ostracized. I don't think when the guys talk to him, and he sits next to Phil Deneau, French-Canadian connection there, I think he's assimilated to the group. And I really haven't anything privately about he's a bad guy or anything like that. It's just he has struggled. He struggled mightily. And I always go back to his style of play. When you struggle and you play very nonchalantly out there and you don't look like you're giving energy every single second, it compounds things. Right? He doesn't have a style of a Trevor Moore or a Blake Lizotte. And that maybe compounds things for the optics for fans. And that's why he's become, plus the numbers speak for themselves. He hasn't been very good. But at the start of the season, he was playing with rookies on his line. Now he's got Arvidsson. So if he's paired with Arvidsson in the playoffs, then you expect a lot from his play because Victor is a playmaker and he's finally healthy again for like the fourth time. I'm saying he's finally healthy. But so for PLD, I don't think he's an issue in the locker room. And it's a really low-key locker room. Other than Drew, there's not a lot of personality in that room. So I don't see him as being a distraction or being ostracized by the rest of the team.
Hey, DB, tell us about the breakout season for Quinton Byfield and the player that he's turned into as opposed to the guy that scored 3 times last year in 53.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be the year, right? I mean, even guys like me who, I try to spin things mostly positive for the Kings, but this was the year you had to emerge. He's emerged. He's emerged. He's big. He's smart. And the one thing I keep going back to, I think if you remember, I think it was in January, they played the Columbus Blue Jackets. And he made an incredible move and burned Werenski. Werenski went back to the bench and, broke his stick. And a lot of players are breaking their sticks against the Kings with their 1-3-1. And that's a national story in Canada, I guess. And I asked, but then he had a great move in Montreal where it was a power move down the right side, went right to the net and planted it past Jake Allen. I'm like, and so that was his 2 goals of the year. I said, Quinton, which was a better goal for you? And his answer was really intriguing, Hustler. He said Montreal, just because of where it was, at the Bell Center in Canada. I'm like, whoa, this kid understands like the legacy of that franchise and what it means, the history of the league. And so he's really grown up. He's become a leader. He's not afraid to talk in the room. Now, is he Austin Matthews? Is he going to score 55 or 60? I don't think so. He's probably like a 30-50 guy in this league, but he has certainly emerged. When he's hounding the puck on a forecheck, you don't want to be around the kid. Like he comes with speed, he comes with size, and he's probably still growing. He's 21 years old. Probably goes in and works out this summer, puts a little more muscle on his body. He's going to be a scary, dangerous player. He's truly emerged. And now the question is, what do you do with his contract? Because guess what? His timing's perfect. He's on the final deal of his ELC. So I'm really interested to see what they do with him contract-wise, and that might affect what plans they have in the offseason once we get there.
Yeah, well, timing is everything, and like Sam Reinhart, he's done a very good job of coming through, albeit on an RFA deal. Never thought I'd be asking you this one, DB, but how important has Big Save Dave been to the turnaround of the Kings season?
He's been really big because when Phoenix Copley went down with an injury, he tore his ACL, he was gone for the season. And now, look, Dave's a veteran. He's been around. He's been an all-star once, whatever. But like, what are you going to get from Big Save Dave? Well, his numbers are on par with Cam Talbot. He's got like a 9-15, 9-17. I think they lead the league in shutouts. People have said, oh, it's goaltending. It hasn't been the goaltending. It really hasn't. It's been more the offense. So Dave's been great. He's been a capable, and I can't even see number 2 because I press Jim Hiller all the time about like what your rotation is. Do you have any plans for, like, have you mapped out the next 2 weeks? He goes, no. I go game to game. And I went to Cam Talbot. I go, Cam, Jim says like he's got no plan for you guys going forward. He goes, here's what he tells us. When there's a back-to-back, he'll tell us who's going first, who's going second. After that, we don't know when we're starting. So you would think Cam gets game 1, but Dave's been just as good. And maybe if Dave puts up a couple of shutouts in the last 8 games, maybe he gets the nod. Or maybe, Hustler, and I know Jim Hill is really unconventional here, maybe there's a rotation in the playoffs. Maybe there isn't one guy. But Riddis has been a huge saving grace because what happened with Cam, I think I mentioned last time I was on, Cam was the all-star representative for the Kings. Going into that game, he had lost 10 straight games. He was 0-7-3. because he probably just got too much usage. He is 36, 30, going on 37 years old. He just got used too much because he was good. Dave came in and really played very, very well. And so, yeah, it really helped. It helped save the team get back on track after that really bad 6 weeks that they had.
Dennis, always great catching up with you. I hope you had a little bit of downtime after that craziness heading into the trade deadline. And get ready. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be buckling up for what should be an absolutely incredible start to the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially in the Western Conference with these 4 series, however it shakes out.
Well, it's a pleasure being on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'll see you in the conference final.
I would love to say I'll see you there. Have a great one, Dennis. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
There's Dennis Bernstein. You can give him a follow on Twitter. And, of course, check out Dennis, Dave, and the rest of the gang at thefourthperiod.com. All right, we're going to hear a little bit of Kyle Connor, who spoke in the morning. Just before we do that, a quick Breezy Bend golf report coming out of the weekend. We thought it might be a massive playoff at 11 under with about 6 guys, but Stefan Jaeger was able to finish it off, get in with the par, and best the likes of Scotty Scheffler and Tony Finau by 1 for his first win on tour. This week, it's the Texas Valero Open, last chance to earn a spot in the Masters. And Liv is in Miami. And then 10 days from today, Augusta National, the Masters gets going. Of course, Breezy Bend brings you all of our golf coverage on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Breezy is one of Manitoba's top private clubs with a championship course, top-notch practice facilities, and the best 19th hole around on their beautiful courtside patio. Find out more about that, wedding options as well, and bookings at breezybend.ca. All right, let's get Reem back in here. And Reem, we do have to get to the Coolbet lines, but before we do that, seeing some comments in chat about Kyle Connor today. I haven't heard this yet, but not a lot to his media availability today, I see.
Kyle Connor's a guy, he doesn't give the longest answers, and yeah, he spoke today, talked about, didn't have a ton to say, Huss, about his new line or what they need to do forward, but I did have a clip here of him just talking about tonight's opponent, the LA Kings, and trying to get through that 1-3-1 that you and Dennis just talked about. So here, we can play this clip.
Played a really good game in LA earlier this season. What's it going to take tonight to get back on the winning note?
Yeah, I didn't play that game, but yeah, we obviously won that game, and yeah, I think everybody just needs to be a little better here.
The challenges of that kind of 1-3-1 today, you have to just kind of really be patient. What are the keys?
Yeah, it's you gotta be patient. You gotta make sure you get through there. I mean, a lot of times they can be flat-footed, so I think the key is to gain speed. Moving up as a unit together. You can't have the forwards get stopped at the blue line or at the red line, and the D have the puck and we end up dumping it with no speed. It's easy for that D man to get back there for them to get it and break out. So they come with speed, be on the same page, and just being patient and knowing that it's going to come.
All right, so there's Kyle Connor speaking today. He will be out there on the left side of Sean Monahan as Rick Bowness has changed things up, and we will see the line that took over the game the last time these two teams played in LA. Gabriel Velarde with Nikolai Ehlers and Mark Scheifele in the middle. Speaking of Velarde, he talked about his return on the weekend and playing against his old team, the Kings, tonight.
I think my conditioning was better than I thought it'd be, and I thought my legs were good. I think just timing of a lot of things, but that's just going to come with playing.
You guys had a run earlier this year where you were playing with Mark and Nikolai, and that line was doing a lot of really good things. Some excitement to maybe see what you guys can do here, this time around.
Yeah, got to find ways to score more goals. So hopefully we can, get some chemistry going fast out there and create some offense for the team.
What was it about that blend of you, Nikolai, and Mark that worked so well for about a 1-month stretch while Kyle was out of the lineup, Gabriel?
don't know if I can really explain it. I think just playing off each other, 3 different skill sets, I'd say, kind of thing. And playing with Fly, he creates a lot off the rush, and he's very smart and very speedy in the neutral zone, kind of quick in transition. So that's fun to play with, and obviously Mark's a really good player and very smart everywhere on the ice. So we'll see. Hopefully we can create some offense, like I said, tonight.
All right, so there's Gabe Vilardi. Well, actually, that's going to lead us into the Coolbet lines. And took the weekend off of the WST parlay just because of the way the Jets have been playing. But new month, hopefully new results tonight. We'll get to that in just a minute. Busy night tonight in the NHL for a Monday. Again, there was only one game yesterday in the league for Easter Sunday, so much busier slate tonight. Avalanche are a massive minus 326 favorite in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. Rangers laying minus 123 as a home favorite against the Penguins. Flyers lost 4 in a row. They're now in a wild card spot. They desperately need a win. They are at home, minus 116 favorites against the Islanders, who trail them by 5. The Wings, who have also lost 4 in a row, taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Lightning minus 192 favorites, comfortably in that first wild card. Potential first round matchup preview. Panthers in Toronto to take on the Leafs. Florida's a minus 124 favorite. The Oilers are in St. Louis to take on the Blues. The Blues, I think, might have just ended their season on Saturday, getting humiliated 4-0 by the Sharks on home ice and getting booed off of it. Edmonton's a minus 207 favorite. St. Louis with Binnington in the net, plus 173. The Kraken and Sharks go at it a little later on tonight. Minus 209 for the Kraken. They're favorites on the road. Sharks plus 175. And then this Kings and Jets game. Don't forget, it's an 8 o'clock start. An hour later than normal. Not sure why. The Jets are minus 118 favorites. The Kings are even money. That one's sort of been all over the place today. But if we go over to the Coolbet exclusives, Winnipeg Sports Talk Parlay, believe in the new top line. That's what we should call it. Hey, these guys had a monster game the last time they played the Kings. Can they be the ones to get the team off the schneid and back in the win column? Well, a Jet win and Scheifele, Ehlers, and Vilardi all to get a point tonight, plus 500, 5-1 right now in the Coolbet exclusives. Dusty's got an EST parlay, 2 or more assists for McDavid, a point for Bouchard, and Oilers to win, plus 335. And then we put together a partner parlay, which we've actually banged off the last couple, which has been nice because, man, my March Madness picks sucked. Lightning to win, Rangers to win in regulation, both of those teams. So Rangers over Pittsburgh and the Lightning over Detroit in reg, and then the Avalanche to win by 2 against Columbus. That was plus 535 in the computer. We've got a real nice boost to plus 615. So if you want to ride with us there, that's in it. And the guys in the chat are always putting together some fun point props. Here we are. Lafreniere, Trocheck, Point, and Hedman all to record a point, and Zach Hyman to record 3 shots. That one is in a plus 725. All there for the Coolbet exclusives. We've got the curling going on right now as well. Brad Gushu, great tournament he's playing. He's at it tomorrow as a minus 10,000 favorite against New Zealand. You might want to skip that one, but still lots of great action at the men's worlds that you can jump on. Valero Texas Open odds are out. Live Miami out. And you know what? We should mention this tonight, Remo. What could be one of the most viewed women's sporting events ever in North America. Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes, 2.5-point favorites against LSU, who they famously met last year, I believe, in the final. LSU's plus 106, the Hawkeyes minus 135. This one starts at 6:15 and is going to have millions of viewers tuning in from around North America.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much of the tournament, Huss, but it's certainly that time of year where you need multiple TVs, men's, women's, Major League Baseball, the hockey. You know, is going on, push to the playoffs, fantasy playoffs as well. And actually, as far as the Jets time tonight, I don't know if this is how true or not, but Drew Mindell of the Legal Curve Hockey Show tweeting out today, does anyone know why the Jets game is at 8? And someone responded, Vikes fan MH, or to this guy on Twitter, says he cited a Sportsnet exclusivity window against Monday Night Hockey. So he says regional games can't start until 2 hours later. Even the other Sportsnet regional game, Edmonton against St. Louis, which I thought was an interesting theory. I don't know who this guy is, if he's inside info, but I thought that was an interesting explanation as to why this might start at 8. I would buy that.
I figured it had something to do with television and the fact that there is a national window on Monday. But you know what? Now that you bring that up, that makes a lot of sense that both the Jets and the Blues in the Central Division are starting their games at 8 p.m. tonight.
I'm actually surprised that this is the TS. I just figured because it was a Monday, I thought it was going to be the Sportsnet late game, but I guess they don't have a late game.
What's the early game? Panthers Leafs?
They just have Panthers Leafs. Yeah, they don't have the late one, so that makes sense.
Go figure. I was able to figure out what the national game was just by looking at the schedule. Jeez.
You didn't even need. I got the schedule here on this computer. Yes, Panthers Leafs. Did you know Austin Matthews hit 60 goals? Did you hear that over the weekend?
I did. Hey, you know what? Historic club. I mean, that he's in multiple 60-goal seasons. I mean, he's had an unbelievable year. The question is whether they've got enough help for Austin Matthews to go up against a team like the Panthers. Well, we will see that tonight. Again, hey, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST on your first deposit. Hook you up with a 100% bonus up to $200 on that said deposit. And back at it 1 hour later, 8 o'clock start tonight, Remo. I'm looking forward to seeing the Velarde, Ehlers, Scheifele line together. I know Kyle Connor didn't say a lot. I think he's feeling the pressure right now. Would love to see a strong game from him. And obviously, LB and net has been great all season long. He'll need to, continue that. And 3 new defense pairings as well for a team that sort of lost their way. A lot new to pay attention to tonight when we get to the rink.
I'm looking forward to seeing tonight's game. Certainly disappointing being on a 6-game losing streak and, your stronghold on the first spot slipping away. But hey, it's, as you said, new month. New season coming up in the playoffs, and we'll see how the Jets perform. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, but I'm not, hey, they're still going to be in the playoffs. They're still going to have a shot against whoever they play. It's going to be a tough opponent no matter what. So I'm curious how these lines are going to work out, and hopefully they have the same success in game 1 here as they did in December, the Scheifele, Velarde, Ehlers line. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
That is, one way or the other, we'll be talking about it tomorrow. I would prefer not to be discussing a 7-game losing streak, so hopefully they can get a damn win tonight, and we'll have some better vibes in and around the chat than maybe there were coming out of a disappointing weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. That is going to do it for us. We'll get this pod up so people can listen before the game, but make sure to join us tomorrow live at YouTube at 1 p.m. Mike McIntyre will jump on with us. We'll break down tonight's game. We'll have more from the Winnipeg Jets as they get ready for the Flames on Thursday. And then this big road trip through the Central Division before finishing up at home against Seattle and Vancouver on the 16th and 18th of April. That is going to do it for us. Thanks to Jeff Hamilton, Dennis Bernstein, and always fun to have Paul Edmonds on the program. And of course, thanks to the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Enjoy the game tonight. And we will see you tomorrow with our second episode of April right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.